Fernando Mendoza, Omar Cooper Jr., and the Indiana Hoosiers head to Beaver Stadium to take on Denai Dennis Sutton, Kaytron Allen, and the Penn State Nittany Lions. We can still expect over 100,000 fans at this game, despite the 3-5 record for Penn State. Now, Indiana 9-0. What's helped them so much is that they have the most prolific wide receiver duo in college football. Now, they had an injury to that core. Elijah Sarratt, he's arguably been the best wide receiver in the country this season. He had a hamstring injury against Maryland, and it's uncertain what his status will be against Penn State, how healthy he'll be for this game. He had a 46 consecutive game streak with a catch that was snapped against Maryland, was not able to pull down a catch in that dominating win against the Terrapins. Look, they were down 3-0 after the early interception from Mendoza, but I have to tell you, I've sort of wanted to see that adversity, to see Fernando Mendoza throw more interceptions. Why? Because what kind of quarterback is he once he has a mistake, once he has a negative play? How does he respond? He responded just fine. What did help a little bit more than that was the running attack. 367 yards. Not 167, which would be good. Not 267 would be phenomenal. 367 on the ground, 4 touchdowns. Kalen Black, Roman Hemby, Kobe Martin leading the way for the Hoosiers. Curt Cignetti has to be fired up about that. When you have that type of dominating day in the trenches, 52 carries, only need to have your Heisman hopeful quarterback throw the football 21 times in a large effort, and then have your defense play to that level even without the sacks. This team didn't have a sack. They didn't been getting after the quarterback. Malik Washington, the freshman quarterback, he was actually pretty good in this game. I was impressed with his ability to extend plays, evade pressure, work outside the pockets, to manipulate the pocket and step up into it, deliver the football, threw for 240 and a touchdown. A respectable performance against a team that could very well be the best in college football. I think we're all going to find out who the best team in college football is in about a month exactly from now, from what looks to be an Ohio State, versus Indiana matchup in the Big Ten championship game. That's exactly where Penn State thought that they would be heading into this season. So it must be just a surreal experience for their fans looking at this matchup against Indiana, a team that they thought that they would be ranked number 1 or number 2. Hosting them in their building could have been a ranked matchup in their heads. James Franklin rolling high after a couple of wins, and that's not at all the case. He gets fired. Terry Smith does a pretty good job against Ohio State. This team is only down by 3, 17-14 at the half against the Buckeyes. I think Indiana fans are going to like the fact that it was sort of that close. So how does Indiana fare on the road at Penn State in that environment? And then also, more specifically here, for the nitty-gritty of this matchup, Indiana's coaches, Curt Cignetti, looking at that film and what Penn State did, running the football on the edges against the Buckeyes, going with the tosses, trying to get numbers on the perimeter, and then on third downs, the Buckeyes dropping into zones. He's sort of looking at that and saying, well, Cooper and Sarratt, they have a lot of success against man coverage, but how can we scheme these guys open a little bit more to the middle of the field? The Buckeyes on the outside, on the full edge of the defense, outside the numbers, they've been terrific. But once you work inside of that, the seams, Penn State was actually able to take advantage of that, and that's when you saw the quarterback for Penn State, Grunkemeyer, make a couple of really nice throws. This team was, I believe, 8 of 14, 8 of 15 on third down. It's well above the percent that the Buckeyes had been giving up. This was a team that was about 90% on this season before last Saturday. Against the situation of a team having 3rd and 4 or more, the Buckeyes were stopping about 90 of those, and they were able to pick up, I believe, 4 third downs on a 3rd and 4 plus overall on the game. So a tremendous job by Grunkemeyer in a tough environment against the number 1 team in college football with the number 1 statistical defense in just about every category that's important. So Indiana, looking at that, sees, okay, well, here's a couple of things that we can attack that Ohio State defense with, and we wind up seeing them as an offense. And you're looking at Penn State, what they did. I fully disagree. Indiana is very similar to what Ohio State has. That's where I'm fascinated. Penn State, they went with man coverage. Jim Knowles was apparently very confident in his defensive backs to cover Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Those guys combined for 11 catches, 250 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So suffice to say, and I believe they were actually total, they had 11 targets, caught 11 passes. So every time they were targeted, does the statistics mean that if they were targeted 22 times, they would have had 500 yards and 6 touchdowns? I'm not so far as bold to say that, but I'm also not bold enough to say no because of the way Julian Saint looked, more touchdowns than interceptions in that game. But overall, Penn State, look, this is an insane receiver duo. This is a quarterback in Fernando Mendoza that's second right now in the Heisman voting, that's earned every vote. He just might be the best quarterback in the country. He might just be the first quarterback taken, the first overall pick in the 2026 draft. Why? Because how effective he is. He steps in the pocket. He makes decisive decisions. He throws with anticipation. He threatens every blade of grass. There's no throw he can't make, and he's a physical kid, 6'4", 220 pounds. He can move very well, extend plays, work outside of the pocket, all of these things that he can do to pair that with easily a top 3 wide receiver duo in the country in Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Sarratt. A very tough matchup for Penn State overall. Look, this still is technically a matchup game. The talent is equated throughout these rosters. You want to break it down. Technically, Penn State has a better roster than Indiana, but we cannot at all whatsoever consider that. I think there's a lot of disrespect to the Indiana players. I think the talent composite is a lot better than the true ratings of what that is, especially now with transfers and guys coming into this program. That's not a true evaluation compared to guys that have stayed in places. So truly, this Indiana team and what they are is one that has very good players, that also has that culture and plays well, but you combine that with what this team is built with. Look, this is one of my favorite defenses in the country. In the middle of that thing, Aiden Fisher, this guy should be an All-American. Up front, Mikhail Kamara, look, has he had the type of season that you maybe wanted him to? No, not quite. He's still been very good. There's Lewis Moore. There's D'Angelo Pons in that secondary. This is no doubt one of my favorite teams to watch. I'll be glued to this one to see how they perform against Penn State because we've got a comparable opponent, and not just a comparable opponent with the Ohio State Buckeyes, but it's back-to-back weeks. You see them, how did they play last week compared to the next week? Both of these games will allow you to sort of use a measuring stick. I truly believe that you could have a bit of an indicator on what these teams look like. Penn State looked like a very good team for a half. What if this team could put up a very solid effort for 3 quarters, not just 2 quarters, and then it looked like this just wasn't whatsoever a competitive game. Once the Buckeyes sort of needed a 10-point game, got a stop in the third, they just fully leaned on them. It wasn't a good game anymore. Penn State couldn't run the football. They couldn't stop the air attack. I think Indiana comes out and decisively decides what their identity will be. They want to lengthen this football game. I believe that they have a sense that they are the better team. You had the talk about Curt Cignetti on the road at Oregon, how he believed he had the better team, that he would not be surprised if they went into Alcine and get the win, despite that at the moment after Georgia went down the longest home winning streak in college football. He's got a lot of confidence. He has faith in his coaching staff, in his players now, the culture that he has built in Bloomington. This is a team that should beat anybody, no matter who they are, no matter where it is, what time it is, that they can win a game any given Saturday. And so, against this Penn State team, I think they come out throwing. That's why I brought up Elijah Sarratt earlier in this show. I'm curious what his status is, because for a full game, if Indiana doesn't have Elijah Sarratt, they got to rely a little bit more on Charlie Becker. They have to find a way to supplant those receiving yards from one of the best wide receivers in college football. A lot easier said than done. That's one of the best parts of, you see these best offenses in the NFL, not just college. The Eagles, Smith and A.J. Brown. The Rams, Nakua and Devontae Adams. You look at the Bengals, maybe not a lot of success this year. Higgins and Jamar Chase. We want to keep going. The Vikings, Addison and Justin Jefferson. They have a 1 that's a dominant force, and then that number 2 that's just as good. Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, 2 future first-round picks coming up here in the 2026-27 draft. So when you have that dominant guy in a Sarratt. And then you've got a Cooper Jr. that's dynamic, that can win his one-on-ones, create separation. He benefits from teams doubling Serret, or just the other way. If you double Cooper Jr., Elijah Sarratt with his big 6'2", 205-pound frame, he's able to take advantage of that and make you pay. That's how dangerous this team is. And to pair that with a mobile, athletic quarterback, that's dynamic. And then you have the run game that Indiana possesses, one of the best teams in the country running the football. Man, did that just fire me up a little bit about this matchup. That's what you're staring down against. Penn State. What type of culture is in that locker room? Well, I'll say this. I doubt that there still is fight in that locker room. This team still has a little bit of an edge to them after they lost at home to Northwestern, after they lost on the road to UCLA, after they basically threw in the towel after 3 quarters against Ohio State. What does this team still have? I mean, you're playing a top 5 team. This is another top 5 matchup. They seemingly just keep coming. Oregon top 5, Ohio State top 5, Indiana once again a top 5 team. Will Penn State win any of these, or is the exact same thing happening this season? Is this season salvageable? No. Can you still play up to the level of your opponent, play to your standard and what your roster is capable of, and throw a wrench into Indiana's season, or at least for a Saturday, throw a wrench into those fans' plans of partying that night after, those players, and have some pride and win a darn football game at home. Look, this atmosphere will be fantastic. Fans will be having an opportunity to bring it, to show what Penn State's about. I'm looking at tonight, Dennis Sutton. I'm looking at Zane Durant, Zakee Wheatley, members of this Penn State defense that I was told are some of the best defenders in college football. A.J. Harris, that these players, Tony Rojas goes down, that's an impact, but that's one guy. That's one very important guy. You understand that. A very, very good football player. He'll find himself playing on Sundays. But you have to find a way to go next man up mentality and not just cave in. I think Penn State has the capability. Look, Indiana, quite a large favorite for this game. You're talking about 11.5 points for a team that's going on the road. I say that's a little bit too much. I think Indiana wins this game 31-21, but you're giving me 11.5 points at Penn State. It's quite, man, I actually wonder, when's the last time Penn State was a double-digit underdog at home? Man, I wish I had a stat team to help me out here. It's really just me with the stats. I come up with this stuff, Blitz with Blender. One day I'll have a stat guy. I'll be able to say, hey, stat guy, give me a stat on that one. And bam, he'll be like 2016 actually against Ohio State. And then man, they pull off the upset against the Buckeyes and win that game. Maybe that's what it was. Man, I actually want to follow. I'm going to look that up after this video. Let me know down below if you knew the answer to that before that question that I have. I'm curious. I'm excited for this game. Indiana, there's a lot to like about this team. There's very little not to like. I talked about Sarratt, that injury. If it is there, if the hamstring tightness and you can't get that fixed up, that is a major concern. This team is not national title caliber without a healthy Sarratt or Cooper Jr. on the field. These guys are pivotal for this offense. There's guys on defense that could go down. They could replace that, or one of their running backs. Obviously, Mendoza, they couldn't lose. He's one of the best players in college football, but they cannot have one of those guys hurt. So hopefully they are back healthy very soon here for this matchup against Penn State. Look, Penn State, I don't have the faith in them. I still have a ton of respect for them and this team because of what these guys are. That's a reason that I believe that they can stay close in this game. This could be a one-score game in the fourth quarter, maybe with Indiana pulling away late because of what I saw from Grunkemeyer delivering the football on third downs against the best defense in college football. You're talking about 11 guys that will wind up total being drafted from that 2024 Buckeye defense. You're looking at 10 or 11 future NFL players on that Buckeye defense right now. Penn State just went against that. Grunkemeyer completed passes. So Trevor Pena, Devontae Ross, these wide receivers, Singleton and Kaytron Allen out of the backfield. They have all of these weapons. Can they manufacture ways to pick up first downs, shorten the game compared to Indiana, who might want to lengthen it, get more possessions, opportunities to take advantage? Whereas Penn State shorten the game. Nick Singleton, Kaytron Allen running the football. and just getting easy completions for your quarterback to give yourself a chance to win. I'm going to take Penn State by 10. Let me know down below in the comments who you think wins this game. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching this video. If you have not already, please subscribe for more Blitz with Blender content. I'm Josh Blender. I'm making a whole lot more college videos the rest of the season. I make preview videos for every NFL game. A lot more content coming the rest of the year. Please subscribe for more in the future, and I will see you guys next time. I appreciate you so much for watching.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinoza to the 20.